This video is either gonna break or make my channel, and I really hope it is the latter. I went to New York recently, and while my thoughts and memories are still fresh, I want to share with you the most underrated and overrated things you can do in New York. Because I was a tourist there, and if you're in the same shoes, maybe you will find this helpful. Let's go. I will first start with something that I think is underrated, and that is New York City bagels. My oh my, was I in for a treat. I knew that New York City bagels are famous, but I didn't know that they are this good, and also that there are so many different varieties of dough, colors, flavor, toppings. It was just insane. We went into a couple of bakeries and I was just amazed about the amount of bagels that were everywhere, about how vibrant everything was and how many people were queuing up. It's a thing. So if you're going to New York City, I would say definitely check out some of the bagel shops. There are plenty that are chains that you can kind of see them around the city, but also there are probably some smaller bakeries that you can have a look around in the neighborhood where you're staying. I have two places to recommend because both of them were really good bagels. The first one is Tompkins Bagels near Union Square. I'm sure that they have more than one bakery in New York. And the second is Liberty Bagels. You will be able to spot them everywhere around Manhattan. And both of these were pretty good for my very average bagel experience thus far. These bagels really took it to the next level. So after New York, I will never see bagels in the same way again. Swiftly moving on to the second thing I want to share, and that is that Times Square is, in my humble opinion, overrated. And I think plenty of people will agree with that. There is something iconic about Times Square, don't get me wrong, but it is always so busy, and ultimately it is just a square with tons of commercials on it. I think that's the point when you get hit and you're like, oh my God, I am in New York. Look at everything around me. And it is such an iconic spot to take a photo or just like to observe everything around you for a couple of minutes. But I think anything more than that gets a little bit too much. I think it's more impressive to go there in the evening when all billboards and ads are shining bright on you. And it is definitely an experience that you will encounter because it is pretty impossible to be in New York and not pass Times Square at some point. But I don't think that you should build your expectations about this being something that you have to be amazed by. Number 3, let's talk about Broadway. If you check out my channel, you will see within a minute that I love theater. And for me, seeing a show on Broadway is something truly special. Nothing beats Broadway, and it is one of the world's greatest places to experience theater. So I have to say that I think that Broadway is underrated because of how much it matters to the theater community and the types of shows and the talent that you can see there. But there are certain things around Broadway that are a little bit overrated, such as maybe merch, or certain things such as TKTSQ, where you need to queue up for a couple of hours to get the ticket. And maybe the prices are a little bit too steep if you are coming from a place like London, where maybe theater is a little bit more affordable. I've done a whole video about differences between West End and Broadway, and you can check it out here. But if you are going to see a show, which I strongly encourage you to, definitely look out for best deals and ways to make this experience as great as possible, because it definitely deserves to be on top of your list. We got to number 4, and that is Brooklyn Bridge and Park. I have a very soft spot for this place because this is where I've fallen in love with New York for the first time when I was there, and it is everything that you have seen in the movies about this city. And once you cross the bridge, that is when it hits you that you are in the greatest city in the world, or one of. And all those shots from the movies or TV shows that you watched is literally there in front of your eyes. So I think that Brooklyn Bridge is underrated and that you should definitely check it out and go and cross it so that you can actually see the views yourself, take some pictures. You have to be prepared for a lot of people and a lot of people having the same ideas. And then going into Brooklyn Bridge Park, it is something that you will truly remember your trip by. Off to attraction number 5, and that is Empire State Building. Going on the top of Empire State Building is rated as one of the top attractions in the US and in New York. So I can imagine that a lot of people who are visiting New York are thinking, is it really worth it? And I think that from my experience, it was very much worth it. But I need to caveat this because I went there on a Monday and it was about maybe 4 o'clock when we actually got to the building. So the whole experience for me was very smooth and there weren't too many people around. Everything was just the way that you want it to be, so you can take your time to observe everything and enjoy yourself. Also, when I went, the weather was amazing. You can see the views and the pictures. I truly felt like I am one with New York when I was at the top of that building. The views of the whole city are just remarkable. So if you have experience of that sort, then I would say that it is underrated. But if you're trying to get to the top of Empire State Building during sunset, or maybe on the days where there is more people, or maybe just the weather isn't good as you hoped it's gonna be because you needed to book in advance, then this experience can become underrated because $44 for a ticket is a lot. And then if it's very cloudy and you can't really see much, then probably it isn't worth it. So I would say play by ear, but there are plenty of other places in New York that you can go and see amazing views. And this takes me to, I think we're up to number 6, and that is Gantry Park in Long Island City. I wouldn't have known about this if my friend wasn't living there, and she was the one who took me there on the first day, and my oh my, the views are amazing. The Gantry Park is literally opposite of United Nations headquarters, and you can see the whole Manhattan Island in front of you, and you can walk along the river and just like enjoy yourself like I would say New Yorkers do, because I haven't really seen too many tourists around. The few people taking pictures here and there, myself included, but a lot of people were running, walking their dogs, and just like enjoying a lovely afternoon. So if you are looking for a good place to go and see the views that is not maybe Brooklyn Bridge or Empire State Building, this is a place that is absolutely underrated and a gem that you should visit. And we've got to the number 7, and that is the Statue of Liberty. This is very much painted by my own experience, and both times when I was in New York, I did see the Statue of Liberty, but I've never went to the Liberty Island. And from my perspective, this attraction is overrated because from Manhattan you actually can't see the Statue of Liberty. It is tiny, so you definitely need to take either ferry and then pass by it, and you still don't pass by it that closely so that you can actually see it. It's just a little bit closer than from Manhattan. And then the other option is to actually go to the Liberty Island and spend probably a significant amount of time around there just to see the statue. So with all due respect, I know it's an iconic attraction in New York. I don't necessarily think that it is worth the time to just go and see the statue. But if you think differently, let me know in the comments. Okay, we have 2 food experiences coming up. The first one is New York City pizza. This is something that a lot of people say that is their go-to. You have to try New York City pizza. And there's this whole conversation about pizza in New York. I went to one pizza place and that was in Brooklyn, and the queue for this pizza place was about 40 minutes long. It's called Juliana's, and the pizza was great, don't get me wrong, but I don't really think that the pizza was out of this world and something that I would really go to New York and try again. Like for the bagels, I'd definitely go to New York for bagels again. But pizza, not really. This might be because I didn't really try the best one, or maybe I didn't try the proper New York pizza, but the one that I've tasted is probably something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend as going out of your way to try. So pizza in New York is overrated. However, there is one more New York City delicacy that I think is underrated, and that is New York cheesecake. It definitely lived up to the expectations, and this is coming from a person who is not even big dessert fan or cheesecake fan. So this was after the show. We finished with Chicago and then just like walked towards Times Square, and then we felt like eating something sweet. And then we said, look at that, that's Junior's. It says they have cheesecake, and we weren't wrong. There were all sorts of different cheesecakes with different flavors. We picked the classic New York City cheesecake, which was delicious, and the other one was with cherries on top, and that was also really good. The portions were pretty big, and the prices were okay. So I think given that it was Times Square and that it is such a popular place such as Junior's, this is, by the way, a chain, so you can kind of see it in other places in the city as well. I think it was a great experience, and it didn't feel like it was too expensive or too much of anything. It was just right, and I think this is underrated. And we got to number 10, and that is Central Park. This is going to be a very controversial one, and I'm going to say that Central Park is overrated. And don't get me wrong, it is beautiful. It's a big park in the middle of the city that is full of concrete, so it's something that really gives balance to New York. But from where I found it a little bit, I don't want to say disappointing, but maybe underrated, is that I actually didn't realize how big it was, and that is to blame on me. When we got to the park, we were right there in the middle, just off the 5th Avenue near Guggenheim Museum, and we started walking there. But then as we tried to make a loop, we realized that everything that we want to do, such as maybe having a coffee or a drink, is a little bit further south, and that we need to walk another 50 minutes to an hour to get there. And I think just the realization of how big the park is was a little bit of a vibe kill for me, and this probably relies on you knowing what you want to do and where you want to go, and maybe in this case it would be better to focus on the part that is closer to Midtown. I had a bit of a feeling that if I get stuck in the park, it's going to be really hard to find the best place to catch the subway or find something to eat. It maybe just made the whole experience a little bit less enjoyable than I was hoping for, but it is a lovely place, and definitely check it out. You have to go and visit it, but I would say just manage your expectations because it's pretty big. Right, so these were my 10 overrated, underrated experiences in New York. I'm sure that there are plenty more attractions that I didn't cover, such as MoMA, Metropolitan Museum, Library, Grand Central Station, so many, but I wanted to kind of keep it to the 10 that I felt strongly about and that I've experienced. Let me know, what do you think? Have I made a mistake with my judgment, or shall I give these places another shot? And tell me, what is your most underrated experience in New York?